Good morning on this Easter Sunday, the 12th of April 2020. A short message this morning, and it's about victory. Victory. But first of all, a little reading from Colossians chapter 1, verses 12 to 14. And giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of his holy people in the kingdom of light. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. So Christ dying on the cross and rose again, victorious. And it's that victory that I want to be thinking about this morning. That victory over death, the victory over the grave, giving us freedom. Yes, freedom. And to illustrate that, I have three little stories that I want to read. So, on the 31st of July, 1838, on the island of Jamaica, a man named William Knibbs gathered 10,000 slaves for a great praise gathering. They were celebrating the new Emancipation Proclamation Act that would abolish slavery on the island. They had built an immense coffin, and into it were placed whips, branding irons, chains, and fetters of all kinds, slave garments, and all the things that represented the terrible slavery system that was now coming to an end. At the first stroke of midnight, Knibbs shouted out, "The monster is dying!" At each stroke of the bell that followed, the crowd repeated, "The monster is dying." And on the 12th stroke, 10,000 slaves cried out, or 10,000 voices cried out, "The monster is dead. The monster is dead. Let us bury him." And they screwed the coffin lid down, lowered it into a great grave, and covered it up. That night, there was much shouting and much rejoicing, because now they were free. But the tragic side of that story is that there were quite a lot of slaves around the island that hadn't heard about the law. Many people had kept it secret from their slaves that they were to be made free. So for many years, slaves carried on serving their masters. Another story of slavery. I want you to cast your mind back about 150 years. Before the days of the American Civil War, as a great big town or city, and there was an auction going on. There were two particular men at this auction. One was very loud, boisterous, and foul-mouthed. You could say he was probably quite a cruel person. There was another man who was quite dignified. He had gentle mannerisms and softly spoken, and you could tell by the time he was quite a nice man. Finally, the auctioneer stood up and started the auction. There before the audience or the crowd was the first lot to be bid on. There was a beautiful young black girl in her 20s, about 20 perhaps. Her dress old and torn but clean. She was obviously very worried. The boisterous man, the cruel man, started the bidding. He wanted her for himself. But then the gentle man noticed the look on the girl's face, so he bid as well. Soon there was only the two of them bidding, and the price went beyond what the cruel man was willing to pay. The auctioneer's hammer came down, the lot was sold. The man came forward, paid the bill, was handed a receipt, and walked away. The young girl got down and followed him. He turned to her and said, what are you doing? Where are you going? And she said, you bought me. I belong to you now. Oh, you misunderstood me, the man said. I didn't buy you to be my slave. I bought you to set you free. Then he took the bill of sale and wrote across it in big block letters, free. He signed his name and gave it to the girl. I don't understand, she said. You mean I am free? Yes, you are free. I can go wherever I want, do as I please. Exactly, you're free. Mister, I don't know who you are, but no one has ever shown me so much love and kindness. If I am free to do as I please, nothing would please me more than to go with you and serve you till the day I die. And that day, not as a slave, but as a willing servant, she went home with Abraham Lincoln. And the last story is more up to date. In 1974, yeah, it's not that long ago, not for some of us anyway, the last Japanese soldier from World War II surrendered. For nearly 30 years, he'd held out in the jungle. Leaflets had been dropped. He thought they were tricks, trying to get him to surrender. The mighty Japanese would never surrender. Somebody eventually managed to find his old commanding officer and got his old commanding officer to come out to him and to tell him it's time to surrender. Nearly 30 years wasted. He died in 2014 in his 90s. But 30 years wasted holding out in the jungle, eating coconuts and stealing produce. The slave that was bought by Abraham Lincoln, she appreciated so much what he had done for her. She said, I just want to follow you. I want to be with you. If you are going to do that for me, then I just want to stick around you and do what you want. I want to be with you. Well, we individuals have had someone do that for us. On this Easter Sunday, remember that he stretched out his arms on that cross and said, this is how much I love you. He gave his life for us, for me and for you. He gave his life to give us freedom. Freedom from sin and all that entails. And if we truly want freedom, if we want to be able to do what we want, if we truly want freedom, we need to follow Jesus. She was given her freedom by Abraham Lincoln. She was given a free card to do whatever she wanted. But she understood the principle of redemption. When somebody is short of money, they sometimes go to a pawnbroker's and sell their goods to a pawnbroker. And then when they've got the money again, they buy it back. But it always costs more. Jesus paid the ultimate price on the cross for you and me to give us life, to give us freedom. Ought we not to follow him? Ought we not to say, if Jesus loves me that much, if he loves me that much, I need to follow him. I need to stay close to him. In the days of Jesus, a good disciple was said to have the dust of his master's sandals all over his feet and legs. They followed them that close. How can we follow Jesus? We need to know him. We can only know him by staying close to him, by reading his word, the Bible, by spending time praying, listening to his voice. If we have been bought by Christ's death on the cross, which paid the price of all our sin, whatever we've done wrong, however big, however small, sin separates us from God. But in the death of Jesus, that is all paid for. That is all sorted out. We need not worry about that anymore. So this Easter, when we think of Jesus on the cross and the price he paid, remember, he loves us this much. He paid the price for our sin. Ought we not to follow him? Thank you.